Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Yankovich, and I'm here with Lana Schlafer. And this is the Women Supporting Women live show that we do every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern here on LinkedIn. And I think we're also broadcasting to YouTube today. So we do this. I do this show. Typically, these are people that have been on my podcast over the past few months, or sometimes from the very beginning. And we just kind of catch up with what's been happening since the podcast. And there's been a lot happening in Lana's world since the podcast. So I can't wait to hear all about that. So Lana, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and who you are?
So I told my whole life story on your podcast, I'm pretty sure, so they can catch it or on my website or on my podcast. I feel like I got a really awesome compliment yesterday when I did a podcast interview, and the host was like, "You are not what I was expecting in terms of a manifesting or a mindset teacher. You didn't even use like the calm voice." He's like, "You're a fireball of a manifesting teacher." I was like, "Yes, that's who I am. Bring the fire, bring the practical advice."
I love that. Right, because why you don't have to be like,
there's no you're right.
You don't have to, you can have energy and personality, right? And still be, centered and grounded in Zen.
Absolutely. So the big news is that I launched my own podcast, which is the same name as my book, Manifest That Miracle. And it's been such a labor of love and amazing to, now sit on the other side of all the interviews I've done. I have to say, it's definitely a new skill, right? Where you want to ask, or at least for me, I do a lot of research for each person. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that I'm asking questions that they haven't been asked before. And it's been really fun. And the interviews have been getting the most amazing responses. And just, is there anything better than sharing like meaningful tools and inspiration and practical wisdom that people can apply in their lives? I mean, nothing better than that.
And you get to talk to cool people, right? You get to talk to cool people and you get to introduce them to your audience. And, I love podcasting because to me, it's like a different, it's still content, because at the end of the day, if you want your voice to be out there, having consistent content is important. But it's not like a blog post where people are reading it. It's much more energetic, much more personality involved in it. I love it.
I feel like it's so, for me, it's important to be on the leading edge. Like, I don't want to regurgitate. I don't want to say what's been said. I want to be with today's times, with what's happening in the world, and really be able to have a conversation that moves the needle in some way. Yeah. And I feel like podcasting gives that opportunity. And then the collaboration between the people I'm meeting, it's amazing. I feel like we're really turning a corner in the world where you have access to every information that you could possibly need to create anything. Mm-hmm. But now it comes down to receiving it from somebody who you trust, from people that, have won your trust, that have integrity. And that takes time to get to know someone. I think it's just a lot easier to get to know them in a podcast versus, little blog posts or short videos, which my YouTube is full of videos, but it's just, they're all like 10 minutes long, because on YouTube, that's the format that you kind of need to stick with.
Yeah. And it's funny because I found myself recently, so our podcast was episode 136. I think we're at 148 or something now. And when I first started, it was just like people were just starting to, podcasting has been around for a while, but it was just starting to kind of explode. So where I thought I would be today with numbers of downloads and things like that, I'm nowhere near, because there's so many more podcasts, right? And I have a phone with 700,000 hours worth of podcasts that I want to listen to, so I'm sure that my podcast is queued up on a lot of people's phones that are like, I really want to hear it, but didn't get to it because there's so much good stuff out there. But the thing is, the people, you don't need everybody to listen to it. You just need your exact right people to listen to it.
That's exactly it. It's not about numbers, really, because I feel like it's each person that matters. And if you can make that intimate connection and serve people, I have always grown organically, because I feel like if you serve people and if they resonate with you, if you can, connect with them and keep their attention, they're going to be the fans that are spreading the word for you. I just find it far more impactful and rewarding for me versus just buying ads or, you know, sort of doing the more pay for play. I don't know, just organic growth. You get real fans, real people who are getting real value.
It's not so because things have exploded so much in the last few years. The numbers are so much less. Not that they really were ever that important, but they're so much less important now. I feel like because you just need to get your people, right? You just need to get your people. And it's just another way to get your voice out there. And I find myself like, I don't remember who it was, but recently somebody introduced me to somebody and I was like, oh, cool. I really want to learn about them. Let me check out their podcast. And they didn't have one. And I was like, how am I going to check them out? Right? Like, I wasn't even sure, like, how to even, I was like, I got to read their blog. You know, like, I just wanted to put it on my phone.
You're like, that's so 2010. I don't read blogs anymore.
So, but it was the first time I was like, wow, like, that's a statement that you're now, like, and I don't even remember who it is because I know for a fact I never dug into them because to me, that's how I learn about people to see if I want to work with them. I want to hear their podcast, hear their heart, hear their energy, hear their message, and to see if if it's along the lines of what I say or what I'm looking for, right? So it's just,
I hear you.
I think it's an important medium for us now.
Yeah. And, I've been wanting to start a podcast for a few years, but I did sort of hear like podcast listeners tend to listen while they're driving, doing things so that the engagement isn't as high as on a YouTube video or a blog where they might actually take action and respond in some way. And so I've been really curious about, are people going to leave reviews but ultimately I'm just getting private messages. I mean, that's it. And so I realize that nowhere you can leave reviews except for iTunes or my blog where we have it. So it's not like wherever people are listening, there's not always an option, but the fact that they're taking the time to make a direct connection, I've received more DMs, PMs, emails. And that's, again, for me, that's where the juice is. Like I am in this not to get to 1 million listeners. I'm in it to impact however many people that I can impact. And that's happening already just 4 episodes in. So I'm like, yes, keep it coming.
Right. It's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be.
Yes. Oh, yes. Because the thing is, if you want to create content that's evergreen and really good, like I just recorded an episode on Black Lives Matter, QAnon, like all these things that spiritual teachers or whatever, I'm not even a spiritual teacher, but mindset, coaches don't really cover. That's really important to me. I've always covered that. But that episode took me 6 hours to prepare, an hour to record, an hour and a half for my team to review to see if we're going to keep it because it's sensitive content. I'm going to pay some people to review it, but like it is content that I feel proud of, that I want to be impactful, but it is not like an instant. And I did think, I could just like talk and then the sound editor would edit it. And then my copywriter would do a little blurb about it. Yeah.
Right. Not so much.
Not quite.
Not so much.
But it's also because I want something that's really quality and not just like a churn and burn kind of just whatever. I mean, with the interviews and everything, I take the time to prepare and again, I've always been about quality and about like value and not over quantity, And so again, at first we're like, we're going to do 2 episodes per week. And I thought, no way.
Right.
1 per week. They're already so many.
But here's the thing too, as a listener, I love that you want to give me 2 episodes a week, but I barely have time to listen to one. Not because I don't love you, but because there's a lot of people's podcasts that I want to listen to, right? So I get it. And it's, it is the interesting thing about it though, for me, which I didn't know, and I don't know if I've mentioned this to you or not before, if anybody has, but what I didn't know about podcasting that I know now, 140 something episodes in, is I get listens to every single episode every single month.
So people just go back and catch the old ones, right? So
they go back and binge, which is a testament to the content, because hopefully if they didn't like it, they wouldn't be listening all the way back, right? But that doesn't happen with your blogs. It doesn't happen necessarily with your YouTube channel, right? So the content that you're putting out now, people could be listening to 2 or 3 years from now, which is as a content creator is really valuable. Yeah, it's really valuable.
I agree. And it's, again, all the more reason to create something that you'd be proud of in 2 years, in 3 years.
You'll listen back and go, I can't believe that was episode 1, right? You'll listen back.
I know. We already have an anniversary party planned next year around this time to just kind of go back and review the first few episodes and be like, ooh, how far we've come.
I know. So tell everybody a little bit though about the Manifest That Miracle. Tell us about that process, because hopefully people have listened to the podcast or my podcast where I interviewed you. But if not, tell them a little bit about you and what you talk about on your podcast and in your book.
Yeah. So I named the book Manifest That Miracle because it is honestly cheeky. But what I'm about is really empowerment and creating what you truly want. And that is an art and a science and a skill and a practice, really, a mastery, something that most people don't focus on. And if people are into kind of self-help in quotation marks or manifesting, a lot of times there's skepticism and kind of a dismissal because it is silly a lot of times the way it's portrayed, in the movie The Secret. And,
right.
It is
on a bicycle and there will be one in your driveway.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, there's a place for everything. And it was kind of like the gateway for a lot of people to start thinking about these ideas, but it can have a negative connotation. So for me, it's really been about I was in pain and lost and not able to find what has meaning for me in life and how to create it. This is not what I grew up with in Russia or even as I came here and was trying to create the American dream. And when I started learning about it, it was just like a whole door opened up to me. And I'm feet on the ground, practical approach person always. So I've sifted and sorted. And then I went to a graduate school for transpersonal psychology. And I've done, the trauma work and the healing work. Like I blend all of those. So the book is about how to be able to assess where you are, how to create a plan for where you want to go. And every chapter, besides the first couple that are introduction, has practical exercises. I think I have an average of 3 exercises per chapter. So it is like a practical manual.
It's like a book you do, not just a book you read.
Yeah, because I don't want you to just read. I don't want you to hear, oh, Lana can do this. I want you to actually go do this for yourself. And I went back and forth about how many exercises to include and what's too much and but ultimately I was like, well, I'm going to put in everything that I can write in a book format and give people real tools. So it is something that my clients are paying thousands and thousands of dollars for. Obviously, it comes to life in a whole new way when we are working in a program together. But the book has a lot of the content that I've been doing for years that I have proven through doing empirical, results with my clients and on myself that it works. And so I feel like it's about you don't need to believe in anything. You don't need to be different than who you are. These are all the common myths. People have the upper limits, the lower limits, I'm not enough. I don't know enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough money. All of the limits. And when you realize that they are only as real as you give them power and that they're actual practical exercises you can do to start shifting those beliefs. And when you start shifting those beliefs, what happens is it's almost like the comparison I like to give is if you're in a bad relationship and everything in your life gets impacted, right? You don't feel valued. You don't feel seen. You don't feel supported. How can you feel good in your work? Or how can you feel good with your friends? I mean, it just like a cloud is over you. This is how most people walk around with that type of mindset. So when you start doing this mindset work, when it works at the root level, everything, it's the tide that lifts all boats. Everything starts improving. You see opportunities where there are problems. You see new choices, new options. You see new ways to communicate, new ways to make decisions. It's like a whole new paradigm opens up to you. And that's when the shift is total, that it's not conditional in this area. Okay, well, now I made more money, but now I've sacrificed my health. Or now I got this relationship, but I completely, am in debt and can't, figure out what I want to do in my life. We're too used to paying a cost for success. That's another theme that runs through the book. So the reason I call it a miracle is because for most people, getting something and having it be enjoyable and easy seems miraculous. They're like, no, I have to suffer and toil and have, a ton of struggle.
What's the catch, right?
Right. What's the catch, right?
Yeah.
And we're taught there's no such thing as a free lunch. And that is true in a lot of, especially online marketing. So, people sort of do a bait and switch and all of that. I'm very open about the bait and switch. I'm like, come get your miracles. But really what I want is for you to come away with personal fulfillment and empowerment for the rest of your life. But really, you will also get results like more money in your bank, better relationship, better health, better sleep, better, interactions with the people around you, better outlook on life. It doesn't cost a whole lot to be hopeful versus to be depressed. Like, it doesn't actually cost money. And the fact that it is here in your mind is so insane to me that we don't spend all of our time educating our kids and really training ourselves to have a mind and a body that we want to be in. This is the one partnership, the one area of your life that you cannot change. You cannot outsource your body or your mind, right? So take care of it and really create something that you are proud of, that you wake up in the morning saying, there's nowhere I'd rather be and there's no one I'd rather be. And I'm excited about the day. You can't put a price on something like that.
So cool. So cool. I love it. I love it. And I love that you said, like, you don't have to be somebody you're not, right? You don't have to, like, you don't have to say, like, you don't have to wear a special hat. You don't have to have a magic wand, right? Like, it just is. And we all know it, because even, like, don't you feel like even like the toughest, I'm going to say guys, which is sexist, but the toughest guys in the world that are like, I don't believe that stuff. They have their lucky shirt on when their team is playing baseball in the World Series, right? They have their lucky shirt on because, like, so we know down deep that we have within us. If we think our lucky shirt is going to help the team on the other side of the planet, win their game, then how could we not know somewhere inside of us that we have the power to kind of bring some of this stuff to ourselves?
Absolutely. And I think it's just important to not talk about how great my life is and how great we've done this, but to give people a real, I learned this phrase somewhere, something like test, assess, something else, don't guess, like, don't just like take anybody's word for it. You don't need to trust. And this isn't a religion you need to believe in. Just like test and assess for yourself and find things that work for you. It's really not woo-woo or complicated. It is like a lifelong, experience. Like, just like eating, you're always going to need to eat if you're going to stay alive. I constantly hit limits and transcend them and learn more and grow and evolve. Like, it's not like I'm fully baked and I'm never going to change. But I don't know what that would be. But there is, that would be so boring, right? To get it done. I mean, if like Oprah and Beyonce still have growth to do, I'm sure we all do too, right? And so I feel like it's about recognizing that learning the process of growth and making it enjoyable, it has to be key, because it's something that you will naturally do then for the rest of your life. And I haven't found a ceiling for how good life can get. Most people haven't found a bottom for how bad I can get. And I was at that place for a long time when I realized, I the more I focus on trying to fix my problems, the more that I wasn't open to the solution. And the problem was calling me to the solution. Right. And so to be able to acknowledge that we are here to have the full experience where there's going to be challenges and pain, and you're going to hit some sort of walls, and it is there for you to transcend. And learning the tools to do that, I think, is the greatest skill we can have for life, so that you don't feel like any problem is bigger than you.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And thinking big enough, thinking that it's the thinking, I don't even want to say thinking positive, because even that sounds cheesy, but just knowing that things are possible instead of, that they're not possible, right? I had a, hopefully you're not listening, but I had a call with a guy earlier today who spent the entire call telling me how things were not possible. And I was just like, all right, dude, well, like, I can't help you then.
Yeah. There's a saying that if you argue for your limit,
if you think it doesn't work, then it doesn't.
Yeah. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and there is a layer underneath that, because when I find somebody who's arguing for the limitations, my first stop will just be to, without judgment, bring awareness and say, hey, I hear what you're saying and that this appears very true to you. Is there an emotional pain underneath? Because most people are carrying trauma that is unresolved. And so they're reaching out, wanting help. But what they're used to is sort of bleeding their trauma and their pain, but not ever being heard. So, I mean, in the setting with you, I don't think that's probably, the appropriate thing if they're talking about strategies for their business.
Right.
But this is why,
because it's making me think I might have approached it a little bit differently. Because I was just like, I tried a couple different times to get underneath of it, and then I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm not.
But this is where people like me exist. We're to dive under the hood, and inevitably there is an element, and by trauma, I mean, a formative experience that have shaped them in a way that has conditioning that they no longer want to keep, but they don't know how to get rid of. It's like a crutch that you can't get rid of because you can't walk without it, right? And so it is about developing the strength sort of on your own legs so that the crutch is no longer needed. And I'm a big proponent of saying it's okay to be where you are, because as soon as I start judging anyone, and when I judge myself, it is no longer a safe place of growth.
Right.
Like we've just shut down. And there are times when that happens. But when I can create a space to say it's okay to be where you are, where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what's next for you? I mean, you've got the podcast, you've got the book. It's been a big year. 2020 has been a big year for you.
It is a big year. So the audiobook's supposed to come out. Yeah, audiobook is supposed to come out any minute. My print book is coming out in January.
Did you record the audiobook?
I did.
Wow.
Which was I actually think that doing the audiobook got me really like, okay, we're doing the podcast now. Because there was some sort of learning curve that happened in, being in the studio and telling my story. And it was a real emotional journey. It was quite like the book is sort of shares my story and the roller coaster of it. And I went through that as well throughout the book. And it's funny because I wanted to re-record my earlier chapters. Mm-hmm. And then the producer was like, no, they were exactly appropriate. Like you were in the pain that you were in earlier in your life. Like you don't want to sound all peppy and energetic because I was like, I sound so like calmer and like quieter in the first chapters. Maybe I was nervous and they were like, no, you did great. But so yeah, doing that got me excited to just sit in front of a microphone, how intimate it felt. Mm-hmm. And how it was healing for me, honestly, to do that. So I feel like the audiobook process was a lot more than I had imagined it to be. And I'm so glad because I mean, who can tell a story that's about everything that I've learned? It would be so odd to listen to somebody else's like narration of it. It would be really weird. And I did a little.
I completely agree. It's so much better when it's in the voice of the author. I completely agree.
But I was nervous. I'm like, sometimes I misspeak and I have a little bit of an accent that comes out once in a while. And sometimes I talk really fast and I'm very like emotional with my voice. And, the producer was like, these are all things that make you you. Like, they'd stop me if I mispronounce something or whatever, like, logistical things, but really that it comes across as you. But I think it's that there was an element of, am I ready to be seen? Right. Because there's not a whole lot of mask. There's not a whole lot of hiding. And with a podcast, I really find myself more and more vulnerable than even in videos, because the medium of video, you're still focused on how the person looks and their mannerism, and something just about hearing someone's voice is so intimate, and you're just you and, 3 inches away from the microphone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2021, the audiobook's coming out.
Yeah, and audiobook, print book.
Are you still doing retreats in the world that we live in now?
Yeah, I'm not. I did the last one in January 2020 here in Puerto Rico, and it was so amazing. And we had planned to do one in LA in September, and that we did a virtual one. So I've converted my retreats to virtual, which have been epic. Oh my God, that's a whole conversation. The one that I did in September was more powerful than the one in January, which I was amazed. But I started doing them only for people already in my program. Like I no longer do. Yeah, exactly. So that way we can really prepare them. And there's a before and a during and an after. And I'm just excited next year to keep promoting the book and growing the podcast and really reaching more people. I mean, I ultimately want to get on TV. Like that's my vision. That's my dream. I feel like that's a medium that I love. And I love doing real-time coaching. Like when I have big workshops and I'll coach one person in front of 50 people or 100 people, it doesn't bother me at all. Once they're sitting in front of me, I'm completely focused on them and everything else fades. So let's set that intention, Karen.
All right,
2021, the year of television. What about you? What's your 2021?
Well, I got to do my book, which I haven't, which is still half done, and it's been half done probably for a year now. But we've really built out our program, and it's funny as I listen to you talk. I teach LinkedIn marketing. It's this real left brain. Most people look at it as a real left brain kind of thing, but I really infuse a ton of right brain. And in the beginning, like probably when we first met, I didn't think I could do that. Like I was like, no, this is how you have to do it. And then I finally was like, screw it. Like if I want to talk about, like, you have to show up and like really like go dive deep into your power chakra when you're writing your LinkedIn profile. That's what I'm going to talk about, right? And we do, one of the things we do in our program is we do a mindset video in every single module. And the very first thing we do is we say, we want you to create. So it's a real blend of right and left brain. And I'm telling you this because we're diving even deeper into that in 2021.
Love it.
Really, because it
gets results.
It is.
That's where the people's limit.
Exactly. Yeah. We have this 12-week program, our accelerator program, and everybody, that's where you start. That's where you start with me. If you want to work with me, you start with the accelerator program. And the very first thing you do is you get a one-on-one call with me where we say, what is your goal? I want you to pick one goal. Like, what is a contract that you want to get? What is it? Like, you might say, I want to be on TV, right? Like, what is that one goal? Yeah. And I have this one client, Mitch, if you're listening, I'm bragging about you. She's a little all over the place, and I really had to keep reining her in on that call. I'm like, yeah, no, we're going to find one thing. I want it to be big enough to make it feel really exciting. And she's doing a summit, and she's like, well, maybe we'll look for a sponsor for my summit. I'm like, oh my God, that'd be awesome. Like, she's $100,000 sponsor for my summit. I'm like, perfect. That's going to be your goal as you go through the program. So today we had a Q&A call, and she's like, yeah, and I got this sponsor for my program. It was like $50,000 to $100,000. I was like, wait, stop right there. She hasn't even done module 2 of our 6 week, like, week 2 of our 12-week program. I'm like, Mitch, do you remember our because we make them write it down, claim it, and send it to us. Like, this is what I'm like, that's exactly what you said you wanted. And she's like, oh my God, I never put that together. But she opened that up to, like, if she had 10 different things she wanted, she wouldn't maybe have gotten any of them. Right.
It's really the power focus and fear.
Yeah. Right. She opened it up to it. So we're really leaning, even though we teach LinkedIn marketing, a lot of it is right brained. How do you want to show up in the world? Who do you want to be? And how do you show up powerfully and get the big clients? Right. So we're doing more of that in the next year because I'm getting more and more confident as my clients get more and more wins, right? To dive deeper into, and I'll give everybody a little, I don't even know if you're watching this on the replay, we'll give you a little sneak peek. I years ago got certified as a dream coach. And I think in 2021, we're going to start incorporating even some subconscious.
I love it. Bring all of you, because that's why nobody else can do LinkedIn marketing or anything else like you, right? Like, you got to bring all of your
conscious mind, but we're going to be working on your subconscious. Like, when you go to bed at night, here's what you need to start thinking about. And, so it's going to be, we have a lot of fun.
So exciting
for 2021.
Yeah, for me too, is the program that I've had different variations of it over the last 8 years. But the last, year and a half, we've really honed it in. And now we're just going deeper and improving it and adding more and more support and more training and more results as a result, right? So it's going deep. I love it. I love it as a theme for 2021. And I hope that, people are like, oh, I just can't wait for 2020 to be over. And I'm like, if you really got the full value out of 2020 and you've positioned yourself for amazing growth in 2021, you are not waiting for this year to be over. It may be challenging, but running a marathon is challenging. Giving birth is challenging. Writing a book is challenging. There are lots of things that are challenging, but they are so worthwhile. And they completely reshape the way you look at yourself and the world and position you in a whole new way. And I feel like 2020 has been so incredible for that.
I agree. I mean, and I think that a lot of the changes that we've seen are here to stay, right? So if you are waiting for things to go back to 2019, it's just not going to happen. And that's not bad. That's not me being doom and gloom at all. People are starting to realize that there's a lot of things they could do virtually that they didn't think that they thought they had to bring in this big team and this big staff, and they had to come into the office every day, and they had to pay for all this overhead for their office. And now they're realizing they don't, right? So I think that there's a lot of reimagining of businesses. And if you are reimagining what your role in this world is, you're ahead of the game.
You're absolutely ahead of the game. And the imagination part is really the part that's the mindset. Right. That is a skill that can be learned. It is not you're born with it.
Yeah.
You know, so if you spend a little bit of time on that skill, I feel like there's so much progress that you can make. And the exercises in the book really talk about how a big limit that people have is just they cannot imagine something different. Right. They have not worked out their imagination. Their imagination is atrophied. You know, it hasn't been used. They've been so like with their blinders, with their what they've been taught. And you know, going forward, the future is for those who can imagine a new reality and create it.
Amazing. Well, on that note, that's a great way to wrap this. Lana, thank you so much for being here. I started to listen to your podcast. I can't wait to listen to more. I'm going to start binging it. It's really good. It's really good. So congratulations on getting it out and on all your successes this year.
Thank you so much. And when you have your book done, let's bring you on the podcast.
I will. I have to do it. It's like, I just have to put it, I have to make it a priority. It's really the bottom line.
You have to do what you teach your clients to do. You have to make it your one goal. And submit it. Submit it to me if you want it. I'll hold you accountable.
All right. You're right. You got it. All right. It's done. It is my one goal. It's going to be finished for the end of this year. At least my draft is going to be finished. How's that?
Love it. Can't wait. Can't wait. We'll celebrate on the podcast.
All right. We will. All right. Thanks so much for being here. This was fun. And you guys will be back next week on Tuesday, 4 p.m.